are few sitcoms as hilarious, heartwarming, and long-lasting as The Big Bang Theory. The series, following a group of nerdy scientists and their endeavors in life, featured a variety of popular stars and guest stars over the course of its 12 seasons. Unfortunately, some have sadly passed away.
Not many sitcoms in 2007 hit the ground running like The Big Bang Theory.
I am proud to say we have the stars from the biggest, bangiest comedy on television. Their series finale aired tonight after 12 seasons of The Big Bang Theory.
Completely rewiring pop culture. But beneath the fun times, tragedy stalked the casts. And their passing was tragic. The Big Bang Theory created a formidable cast list that has stuck to the silver screen like a shadow to light, including Jim Parsons, Kaley Cuoco, and many more. But which cast members left us without a warning? How defining was the demise of these actors on their legacy? Join us as we discuss the tragic passing of 10 Big Bang Theory cast members. Number 10. Carol Ann Susie. The Big Bang Theory was a force of natural concept that pushed pop culture to its limit. For 12 straight years, the world watched the genius college kid, Sheldon Cooper, deal with life as a man with a high intelligence quotient and a pretty low emotional intelligence. And Carol Ann Susie played a huge part in the development of that sitcom. Carol Ann Susie rarely appeared on the show. However, she made her presence felt, and Sheldon just could not ignore it. Carol, as Mrs. Wolowitz, was the mother of Howard, one of Sheldon Cooper's best friends. Mrs. Wolowitz was often introduced as a comedic device, who never reveals her face, but makes sure her screams are loud enough to get everyone's attention, especially Sheldon's and Howard's. A comedic tornado, if you will. In some episodes of the show, she mostly lurked in a room, screaming her lungs out for Howard, often disrupting the endless geek conversations between Sheldon and Howard. Mostly, they discussed science, math, and every other boy genius dream you can think of. Although her heard but not seen character was by design, her demise was most definitely not. It was a sad day for fans of the franchise, who anticipated those high-pitched screams and the confusion, anxiety, and annoyance they brought Sheldon. She lost a long-fought battle to cancer on November 11, 2014, taking away that familiar voice that set the show on fire. Although the voice could have been replaced, as she was never seen on the sitcom, the writers chose to honor her memory by writing her out of the script. Shall we turn the pages and meet a new fallen legend? Number 9. Bob Newhart. Bob Newhart played Professor Proton in The Big Bang Theory, filling the role of mentorship that the boy genius, Sheldon Cooper, had lacked all his life. Bob joined the show during the 6th season, specifically, episode 22. The Proton Resurgence. Being born in a family like Sheldon's, with his 187 IQ, meant only one thing. His mind was way too quick for his siblings and his parents. He was alone in a fortress of intellect built in his mind, and only other eggheads like himself could climb into it. Hence, his love for Arthur Jeffries, the popular Professor Proton from the kiddies' science show that he used to watch as a child. Bob Newhart's character was the typical old genius whom Sheldon could completely respect and learn from. So their relationship was such a revelation in the 6th season. Sheldon had met his hero, and no one else could have played that role as Bob did. But just before his death, his character, Professor Proton, died of illness and old age in Season 7, Episode 22.
It's the end of an era in comedy. Accountant turned entertainment icon Bob Newhart has passed away,
which aired in 2014. However, 10 years after his cinematic demise, the nonagenarian had started to deal with bouts of illness. Although he raged against the dying of the light, repeatedly battling and winning against his recurring illnesses, time and death failed to be conquered, as he suffered a barrage of health complications. Consequently, the curtains fell on July 18, 2024, and yet again, another member of the Big Bang Theory franchise bit the dust. While the television genius's death left such a dark hole in fans' hearts, how did they respond to the demise of a real-life legend? Number 8. Stephen Hawking. Talking about eggheads and the greatest geniuses the world has ever seen, Stephen Hawking ranks at the very top of that pile. He was a theoretical physicist with an IQ estimated to be around 160. Although his position as one of the greatest geeks to have ever walked the face of the earth is not to be contested, no one really knew that he also had a bit of thespianism in the bag. In Season 2, Episode 14 of this show, Stephen Hawking made a guest appearance, as he was written into the sitcom as a mentor figure for Sheldon Cooper. Although it was one of his friends, Harold, who had won the chance to meet the legend face-to-face when he arrived at Caltech, there was something so fascinating about Sheldon that Stephen couldn't help but speak to him. While you could tell that it was a script being fleshed out in real life, it was also a collision of the real mind of a genius with a Hollywood genius who would be considerably smarter, as Plot Armor has his IQ at well over 180. It wasn't just acting, it was television gold. Watching Sheldon stutter, move more carefully around him, and accord him the respect that everyone in the real world knew that he deserved, serving some level of verisimilitude to the series in a way that had not been done before. For most science geeks, it was the best thing ever to see a respectable man of science become a part of the pop culture's fabric, making his demise in 2014 even more devastating across the science communities and Hollywood. However, his appearance has remained a cherished reminder of his genius and warmth. Following the death of Sheldon's science mentor,
Stephen Hawking was one of the world's most curious minds and groundbreaking voices in science. He has died at the age of 76.
how did he react to losing the curator of his comic book escape? Number 7. Stan Lee. There would never be an acceptable discussion about comic book culture, superheroes, and the Marvel franchise without mentioning the legend, Stan Lee. However, this knowledge is not only limited to the outside world, but also in Hollywood. Sheldon Cooper's life had always revolved around sciences, facts, fictions, and even a bit of pseudoscience, and comic book creates a bit of that bridge between these fascinating ideas that swirl around his head. Hence, what better man to talk to than the creator of some of the greatest science-defining characters, including Spider-Man, a lad who got bitten by a radioactive spider and suddenly developed its abilities, including flexibility, wall climbing, even upside down, super strength, and spamming webs. Sheldon viewed Stan Lee as a key figure in the overlapping bridge he created between science and pop culture with his comic books. Hence, his reverence for him ran nearly just as deeply as how he felt about his favorite scientists. If Albert Einstein was the creator of his scientific world, Stan Lee was the curator of his greatest form of escape, the comic book world, and their outlandish characters. Stan Lee's appearance on the show went right from the comic book convention, where Sheldon could not meet with him, and instead ended up in jail, with Sheldon appearing right on his front door in one of the most memorable scenes of all time on The Big Bang Theory. Sadly, Stan Lee passed away on November 12, 2018, with a legacy that spans across pop culture, comic books, and the golden age of television. But if this loss felt heavy on the hearts and minds around the world, how do you think they felt when they lost one of the first ever caped crusaders? Number 6. Adam West. Talking about the legends of 60s television, Adam West is a solid part of that era, playing the role of Batman, DC Comics' favorite caped crusader and savior of Gotham. If you love deadpan humor pillared by insane punchlines, then Adam West was always the man for it. Not many expected a scene from the man who had donned the cape and scowl of Gotham's crusader, but he showed up, and he most definitely showed out. Adam did not just come on the episode. The celebration experiment. He arrived and stole the show. Maybe old truly is gold. He played a rather petty diva fashion of himself, who cannot take a joke, and now will let any criticism of his Batman role ride at all. He came down on the kids like a tidal wave when they brought up names like Michael Keaton, Christian Bale, and George Clooney as better representatives of his live-action Batman sequels of the 60s. But his "I never had to say, 'I'm Batman, I showed up, people knew I was Batman' line knocked the wind out of everyone's sails. His appearance came with some serious humor and that old head-top dog who just cannot let go of his greatness in the past. He was the perfect cast, bridging the gap between 60s television and humor, and the nerd culture on The Big Bang Theory. Unfortunately, the sword of death came swinging with a leukemia-laced blade, cutting him down at the age of 88, leaving a huge void in the hearts of The Big Bang Theory fans and lovers of Batman classics. What a legend! Adam West's death left an obvious void in the hearts of fans, but how will they cope with losing another legend? Number 5. Carrie Fisher. Carrie Fisher was Hollywood royalty, with unrivaled star power. Maybe she was simply Carrie to family. To the rest of the world, she was Princess Leia Organa, a fearless rebel who went toe-to-toe, brandishing her DL-44 heavy blaster pistol against empires, and stood her ground when the going got tough in Star Wars. However, in 2014, she featured on The Big Bang Theory, playing Carrie and Princess Leia, the 1970s Star Wars legend. But instead of a blaster, this time, she had a baseball bat. The episode intertwined bits of pop culture that would mostly never really be in the same space. For some context, James Earl Jones, who voiced Darth Vader in the 1970s Star Wars franchise, brought Sheldon Cooper right to her doorstep, ringing her doorbell and making a run for it. She stepped out angrily, yelling his name, and he teased her into a fit of rage. However, the real culture clash came on when both characters saw each other, and Carrie called James Earl Jones Dad. Although in Star Wars, Darth Vader hadn't met his daughter at the time, meeting now on the set of The Big Bang Theory, when actually playing their roles as themselves, sent a serious shockwave around the Star Wars comic book culture and fans, but was also the perfect overlap that no one saw coming. Carrie's one-line punchlines and deadpan comedy created a spot for her in the hearts of many television lovers, especially fans of Star Wars and The Big Bang Theory. However, she could not avoid the cold, bleak hands of death in December 2016, when she reportedly died from cardiac arrest. Losing Carrie to a cardiac arrest bled hearts and brought tears. But what happens when death comes for another icon? Number 4. Jessica Walter. Jessica Walter has always had that old-school charm, elegance, and fiery intelligence, especially with her impact in Hollywood movies like Play Misty for Me, her breakout thriller role opposite Clint Eastwood, where she played the role of Evelyn Draper, the titular movie, Archer, where she played Mallory Archer, and Lucille Bluth in Arrested Development. She was Hollywood's golden diva, who has enjoyed over 5 decades of an award-winning career, but then came a chance to feature on The Big Bang Theory in Season 4, Episode 15, The Benefactor Factor. Her role was simple, but she was absolutely buzzing for it. She had to play the character of a beautiful, super-wealthy woman, Mrs. Latham, who chose to fund the research of our favorite nerds, Howard, Raj, and Leonard. She was particularly fantastic at making them squirm at every word that came out of her mouth, and the space plumber line that came as a rebuttal to Howard's bragging about creating the zero-gravity waste disposal system for NASA is a line that has remained in pop culture forever and even outlived her. But here comes the kicker. She was doing more than funding research. She wanted a quid pro quo, which included a romantic relationship with Leonard, and in return, she buys all that they need to get their research to the next level. A 70-year-old cougar, who would have thought? She mixed the wealth, class, and humor recipes so well. It was unbelievable. Her imprint on The Big Bang Theory in 2011 solidified her legacy as Hollywood royalty, making her demise on March 24, 2021. A rather painful experience and deep loss for Hollywood and pop culture. Jessica Walter's death felt like a direct stab at the heart of Hollywood.
Actress Jessica Walter, famous for her roles in Arrested Development and Archer, has died.
But how did it feel losing one of the greatest Shakespearean actors to have ever graced the silver screen? Number 3. James Earl Jones. Talking about passion and a zeal for acting, James Earl Jones embodied it with class. From playing Shakespeare with top performances as Othello, King Lear, to Oberon from A Midsummer Night's Dream, he was quickly adjudged as the king of Shakespearean plays. However, he wasn't just some Shakespeare freak who couldn't handle other things. He was also a monster at other types of play, including his legendary representation on Mice and Men and as Balthazar in the television series, Jesus of Nazareth. But real fame and recognition knocked on his door in the 70s when he played Darth Vader. Although he did not physically play the character, he was the voice behind it. It was a recognizable voice that kept everyone on their toes when it came on. He was the perfectly voiced villain. He was 83 years old and the phones were barely ringing until The Big Bang Theory called, and he answered with aplomb. His debut episode, called Locomotive Manipulation, came in 2014, and he had the fans in stitches every time he spoke. His comedic timing was impeccable, and he just brought that octogenarian man humor to the scene, and it was a perfect blend with the 21st century impressions. But in 2024, at the age of 93, Earl Jones fell to diabetes, and it was a dark day in Hollywood and an even darker day for fans of The Big Bang Theory. Although he was already an old man who inevitably lost to time and fate, his demise still had a cosmic impact in Hollywood. But who other icon left without saying goodbye? Number 2. Leonard Nimoy. Leonard Nimoy has been Hollywood royalty since the early 70s. While friends might probably remember him as good old Leonard with a serious sense of humor, in popular culture, he will always be Mr. Spock. He had been a huge part of the Star Trek franchise for almost 50 years, playing the half-Vulcan, half-human science officer. His depiction of the role in the 1960s has already earned him Emmy Award nominations, but his most recent appearance on The Big Bang Theory was a welcome surprise that no one expected. In the sitcom, he was asked to reprise his role as the half-Vulcan science genius, Mr. Spock, but this time he would not have to appear on set. All he had to do was record the lines in the voice of Mr. Spock, speaking to Sheldon Cooper in a dream as a toy version of his Star Trek character, appealing to his logical side and questioning his reasons behind having a toy that he wouldn't play with. However, even he could not escape the languid arms of death that caught up to him eventually on February 27, 2015, at 83 years of age, having suffered from complications of chronic obstructive pulmonary disease that put him in a coma. Having revisited this heavy feeling of loss, what emotions did the next fallen icon bring? Number 1. Jane Galloway Heights. Speaking of American television legends, Jane Galloway Heights was a fantastic actress and casting agent who was often known for her guest appearance on Glee as Lillian Adler, the former head of the Glee Club at William McKinley High School. However, in 2008, she was a part of the Big Bang. Appearing on the episode The Friendship Algorithm, where she played the character Mildred. Although she might have been overlooked as inconsequential by fans who largely focused on the biggest cast, with whom she shared her scenes, her time on the sitcom brought smiles to sad faces and kept the humor going. But things soon got darker for Jane when she was hospitalized in Illinois for a heart problem. However, her daughter's hopes were soon dashed when she gave up the ghost, surrendering to congestive heart failure. Following her daughter's announcement, fans of many franchises who had the privilege to work with Jane remembered her warmth, her talent, her grace, and that big, bold, and beautiful smile. Just how difficult have these deaths been for fans of the Big Bang Theory franchise? Do you think their legacies remain protected? Share your thoughts with us in the comments section. Remember to like, share, and subscribe for more. Also, click the next video showing on your screen. You will enjoy it.